Amitofo, first of all, apologies because it's been raining here for last 2 days and today it stopped. So network are really bad. I'm not able to go live as I promised. But Meri Kahani, Meri Zubani, My Shaolin Road, episode 1 today. I'll recording it and then I'll be posting it. So I'll speak in English and in Hindi because a lot of people, my friends who are out of India, would also like to hear this. So I'll speak in English and Hindi mix जैसे भी होगा. So I was born on 3rd of August 1977 in a family of 4 generations of journalists. And I have an elder brother who's also a very renowned journalist now. My father was a very renowned journalist, and I had grown up in an environment of media, politics. Since childhood, I had a very keen interest in sports, never wanted to study, and that never interested me, like any other child. But the person who's responsible for who I am today, and I have to give the credit, is my driver, my father's driver, Suraj. I used to call him Suraj Bhaiya at that time. Until today, he's Suraj Bhaiya to me. Also, ever I've lost touch with him. I've tried to connect with him, but not able to connect base with him. So, if people who are abroad might not know uh, Panchatantra Kathaएं, they were like stories which every child used to hear, or used to read, like Tintin or Asterix, people read abroad. But for me, I never read these books, though my brother had a whole collection of it. He used to read these. I never read it. For me, the storytelling came from my driver when I was small. Perhaps the first story he narrated to me was of a kung fu film called The 36 Chambers of Shaolin. And his way of telling the story was not like normal narration of the story. He himself was a kung fu fanatic, kung fu lover. And he used to tell me the first scene he narrated to me was, and he used to call me Baba, with a small boy, and he used to say that after that fight got over and this young man went inside the Shaolin temple, he hid himself in a basket of vegetables, and when he reached the Shaolin temple, he came out and he saw people practicing. All he wanted to do was to train kung fu. And then he went to a hall where all the monks were praying, and the abbot was asking them certain question, and he asked the abbot, I want to learn kung fu. The abbot told him, leave. And now I'm telling you exactly the way he narrated the story to me. And I was sitting next to him, and then he said the abbot had so much power in him that without touching, and he did this to me, and he said, boy! And I got afraid and I jumped back. And he said, you see, I have chi in me, I have power. I didn't understand. A small boy who was 7, 8 years old, what is chi? I didn't know. He knew all these words. But it really fascinated me. He used to carry me on his shoulder and he used to narrate the story. The whole night I would think about these kung fu moves, kung fu movies, and I was longing to see these films. Then he narrated me the Mad Monkey Kung Fu. Another, he would show me that every day the guy used to train like this, pa 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 pam, pa 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 pam, and it made me so crazy that I would be doing it on the wall, in my Almira, on the tree. It was like, for me, my world was just kung fu. It has just become kung fu. And I remember my father asked me one day, yeah, so what will you do when you become big? So I said, I want to be a Shaolin monk. So my father is like, what? I said, I want to be a Shaolin monk. And he asked me, do you even know the meaning of monk? Because I was so small and I didn't know that. So that's how my journey started. And in India, there was no uh, kung fu practitioner at that point of time. I was very young, so my driver found a teacher, Mr. Murugan, Sensei Murugan, and he put me into karate. And that's where my martial arts journey started. I started with Goju-Ryu karate, and I trained for over 4 or 5 years continuously. Though my brother started with me and he left, and his interest was more on cycling and gymming and Gymming, I mean to say, he wanted to do push-ups, he liked to run and stuff. And so I started with karate, and later, I, I used to stay in 25 South Avenue, near Teen Murti Bhavan, and International Youth Center is where I first started learning martial arts, karate. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, there used to be a guy who used to teach karate. So after 4 years of learning karate, I suddenly realized one day I went to the youth center because they used to get good food and chicken. So I went in the evening to buy chicken. I saw they were like bunch of 5, 6 guys, you know, wearing black dress and doing some monkey and stuff. And I suddenly got so fascinated. I was like, oh, what is this? Then I asked my driver, I said, please, please, please talk to him. And then we went to him. He said, oh, I train Kung Fu. So I was like, oh, train Kung Fu? And immediately, without thinking, I enrolled myself. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I started doing Kung Fu. Till date, I don't know what style of Kung Fu was it, whether it was authenticated or not, but I was so crazy about Kung Fu that I joined that. And Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I was doing karate. After 5 years, that man left that place. My teacher went to London. The dojo got closed, and I had no teacher with me. And I was lucky enough because my father was a very influential person, and he had his friend who was Chinese, Mr. Lee, and I got to, you know, I started training with him. He introduced me to Mr. Lee, and not many people know that, even in my family. I started training with him, and on and off I used to train with him. And one day, my driver came back to me, and he used to take me to this place in Nizamuddin to eat chicken in an Afghani restaurant. So one day when I was packing my food, he was speaking to someone, and next he came to me and he said, Baba, I found a Kung Fu teacher for you. I said, huh? Who's the Kung Fu teacher? And he said, his name is Wahid Ali. It's like, Wahid Ali? And so he used to train in Defense Colony. So Suraj took me to Wahid Ali, and that's where I got the first lesson from my father. And this is the first episode of my Kung Fu journey for my life. So the next day I went with my driver, didn't tell my father, and I reached Defense Colony, and Wahid Ali was there. I tell you, that guy was huge, 6 feet, broad shoulder, Afghan man. I saw very few limited students. They were running, dipping, and I saw a tiny, thin guy, young lad. And I told him I want to learn Kung Fu. He just smiled at me. He said, I don't teach Kung Fu like this. So, and I got really disheartened, And he said, I don't want to teach. And most of his students were Afghanis, And I just took it to my heart. I said, no, I want to train. I want to train Kung Fu. So he said, what have you trained before? I said, I've trained karate for 5 years, like a small boy. I was boasting, I trained karate and I trained some Kung Fu. So he said, oh, you trained Kung Fu? So, it was just out of love. He just touched me like this. Okay, let me see, So all karate guys, they do stomach control and stuff. I tell you, I've never experienced this kind of power in some person. He just gently did like this to me. In my eyes, it was like the twinkle, twinkle, little star. I didn't know what happened. And maybe it was the emotions and everything. I just sat down, I collapsed, I was shivering. Suraj got me home. I had fever that night. And so Wahid Ali told me, if you come tomorrow and give a test, if you pass, I'll accept you. So in the morning, I was in tears because I had fever, 101, I remember. And my father came to me. He's like, what happened? Why are you crying? I said, I went to this teacher and, I had fever and I can't go. He said, why can't you go? I said, I have fever. He said, so what? He said, is your love so shallow that 101 fever will stop you? That sentence hit my brain. I was like, okay. I got up. He gave me a paracetamol. I had that. I ate something. I went. The first thing he told me to do was jumping jacks. He told me to run. And then he told me to do some dips. After doing the dips and few kicks, I collapsed. The driver came running, he picked me up, and Wahid touched me and he said that is ये बच्चे को तो बुखार है, you know, in that Afghani language. So he told my driver that he's running in fever. Why did you get him? And then I was like, no, I want to give test. So Wahid said, no, you have fever. Why did you give this test? I said, no, if I wouldn't have given the test, you will not accept me. That teacher picked me up on his, you know, with his hands like that. He said, "Tu Pathan ka bachcha hai, you know, you're a son of a tiger." And that, you know, really gave me so much confidence. And I was smiling. I forgot I had fever, and I went back home. I was so happy that I got accepted. This was the first lesson my father gave me. That if you want to become good at something, you have to go mad over it. You know, people find excuse. They don't have money, I don't have this, I'm in pain, my knee is paining, my back is paining. If I tell you today I'm 42 years, I have broken fingers, broken thumb, broken toes, every part of my body is broken, but it does not hamper me from training. It does not affect my love for Kung Fu. So all those guys who make excuse in martial arts or for any art form, I don't believe in it. If you have willpower, if you have determination, and if you love it, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you in this world. So this is the episode number 1, the starting of my journey. I'll meet you guys after 3 days with episode number 2 of Meri Kahani Meri Zubani. And that is from where everything starts in my life. You know, how I had fallen, how did I get up, and my seed to Shaolin Kung Fu. And that is what I'm going to be telling you. So stay tuned, and I'll see you after 3 days for the next episode of my Shaolin Road. Thank you so much. Amitofo, this is She and You from Shaolin Temple, China.